All right, let's make our first steps in Power BI. And here you see I have opened Power BI. And the first project will be related to the data acquisition from internet. So for example, if we check the website, which contains the IMDb top 250 movies, and here is the website which contains the list of that movies. You see them here. This is obviously in the HTML format. So what is HTML format? I don't want to go into details, but if we just view page source, we can see that it's some structured data. Okay. Which browser uses to convert, actually what browser does, it converts this HTML to a human understandable and visual format like this. So our purpose or our goal is to get all this data and to make some simple analytics out of this data. For example, we want to get the names of movies, the years of movies, ratings, and let us say we want to check, is there any relationship between the year and the rating, or can we find any clusters, or does the first letter of the movie influences to the rating, and so on. So how we start the data acquisition process in Power BI, that's very easy. But we have to do that together. So you are watching this video, and despite that I don't see you and we are like kind of offline, we have to do that together. That's why I will go step by step and quite slow. So we use first get data, and now we need to get data from web because we are in web and the data is in web actually. You see this place where we should input the link which contains all this data. Let's do that. Okay. There is some into a value. Yeah, we have it. Yeah, it works. It's thinking and giving me some prompts. You will get the same. What right now Power Query does, it analyzes the structure of that website and understands if there are some tables which can be imported. For example, if we check the table 1, we see that it contains that data. If we check the table 2, it contains the same data. So actually it has parsed this into some table, but I see here that there are some unnecessary columns in the second table. Let's check the first table. The first table looks cleaner, and I think we will go for the first table. So I check the first table, and now be careful. If we choose load, it will just load all the data we see here to the Power BI. Instead of that, we want to transform this data first. That means, for example, I want to separate here years from the name and do some manipulations probably with the data I have here. So that's why I choose transform data. And what happens now? Power BI will open Power Query. And you know that Power Query is the special application for transforming the data or editing the data. Here it is. So what I see here that the first column is actually empty and I don't need this column. So let's start cleaning the data. First, just remove the first column. The next, I see that here we have title and the rank, fine. Rating, fine. And your rating, it is something weird and I don't think that I need this column and this column. So I choose these two columns by clicking and by pressing and holding Control key and selecting both columns, and then right click and remove columns. That's it. Now please pay attention to the sidebar or side panel. Everything we do here, everything we do is being recorded. So we can go back and see what was before, or how my data was looking before. You see that, right? So this is the last step, and after the last step, I have two columns, and I'll work with these two columns. So the first thing I want to do is to separate here the rank and the title. So if we just think logically, we can have an algorithm, and we see that dot and space separates them, right? So in Power Query, we have a special function or special ability. It's called split column. So we can choose split column, and in this case by delimiter, because here we have some delimiter like dot and space which separates them. So let's choose by delimiter and follow these instructions. Now here we should also be careful. First, we should choose here custom delimiter, and let's choose dot space. So I just type here dot and space here. And we should be careful because let us say there could be a movie which contains dot and space in its name. So we will separate that movie title also, and we don't want to do that. That's why we have to choose leftmost delimiter. Okay? And that will guarantee that we will split by the first match. So I choose leftmost delimiter, and we split into columns. It's so easy. Just let's click OK. Of course, if you need time, you can pause and work yourself here. Okay. And let me see. It didn't work, actually. So what was the problem? Let's see what was the problem. I think that the problem is because here we have unprintable characters from the internet or from the HTML. You see, it didn't work. I have some additional column, but it didn't work. And I can always go back. I cannot like do undo as we usually do in Excel, because here I actually program or code my steps. That's why here we have two additional steps: split column by delimiter, and automatically Power BI changed the types of the data. So just let's delete them. 1 and 2. Again, I am in the same step I started with, right? So the last step after the transformation first. Okay, so what I think that, hey, I need to remove unprintable characters. Luckily, we have it in Power Query. So let's just click here with the right click, and let us try to find where is that. Okay. I don't see it here, so let us find it in Transform. It should be related to the text. Here it is. Oh, maybe that was also here, but I just missed it. It's called clean. Right, let's read what is clean. Remove non-printable characters in the selected columns. So let's just click clean, and it should clean non-printable characters from this text. Now let us try to repeat the splitting process. Again, by delimiter. So custom, in this case, again, dot and space, leftmost delimiter, and let's click OK. It worked. Because now we didn't have any non-printable characters. And now let's see what happened. First, here, we have splitted the column into two columns. And Power BI automatically detected the data type. So what are data types? You can see here that we can choose and set the data type for a particular column. For example, here it is set to be whole number, which is actually what we want because rankings are whole numbers. And this one is set to be text, which is also okay because this is title. So now let's change the name of this column to rank. Just double click and rename it. Enter. And let us now continue with this column. Now, what kind of data we have here? We have a title and year. So this is a natural step to separate the year from this title, right? So let's continue with that and separate them. Again, we can use split column by delimiter. We can do also different other operations which can also solve this problem. For example, we can extract between delimiters. But that's tricky because our delimiters they are different. So this is opening bracket and closing bracket. That's why it's a bit tricky. So I think split will work better. So let us split by delimiter. We can also split by number of characters because I know that year consists of 4 characters. But let's go and continue with this option. So first, I split with opening bracket. You see it automatically detected that. And in this case, again, my title can contain brackets. That's why, or parentheses, they're called also. That's why it's better to choose rightmost delimiter. That's the first one from the right. And let's click OK. Here it is. Obviously, here we have title now, and here we have year, but something wrong with this year. As we can see, there is a closing bracket here, and we have to get rid of that closing bracket. Again, we can do with different possible functions or procedures to get rid of that. The easiest way in this case, I think, is just to replace them with nothing. So we can just go to Home section and find Replace Values. Just click it. So let's find, it's like in Word text processing. We have to find closing parenthesis and replace with nothing. Okay. What happened, we have deleted or removed all those parentheses. Obviously, year is also a numeric value. That's why let's change the data type here to a whole number, because year is a whole number. And let us rename this column to year. As you can see, we have now year. Now let's change this one to title. And here we have IMDb rating. So now I have 4 columns, and all of them contain specific data. Now let's go from the start. So the first actually step was source. This is the source. As you can see, it's in an HTML format. It's just a text file with a special code in it. So we have extracted table from HTML. Then we have promoted this headers. Promoted headers means using the first header as the name for columns. Then Power BI automatically detected and changed types. And then we done other steps together. As a result, we have now clean table which can be used for further analytics. Now the last thing here, we can change the name of this table. Let's call it IMDb top. Just top. Internet Movie Database top. And now we can press enter. You can see here that the name of this table is being changed. Now we can close and apply. And let's see what will happen. Now Power BI loading the transformed version of that data. It can take time, especially first time, because Power BI also tries to detect the data model. In this case, our data is very simple. So we can check here. To the left, we can see that we have model section. So let's click on that. If it offers to upgrade, just upgrade it. It will have new look. It's cooler and easier to work with the new version of that. Now we can see that we have just one table, which is called IMDb top, and it contains 4 fields or columns. Now, this is very simple data model because we have just one table to work with. Let us say we want to see what is in this table. To do that, we can switch to the data view, and to the right in the panel, I can expand and collapse again my table. And here you can see all the columns of that table. And now be careful, this is not Excel. And in Excel, we have a bit different view on things. So in Excel, we have something which is called a cell. That's why it's called Excel, most probably. And cell can be anything. Cell can be number, cell can be text, cell can be date, and we can mix cells in one column or the data types of those cells. So for example, in Excel, I can have data, number, text, and something else, which is not actually good practice. In database style applications, like for example Power BI, we have a field and it has its own data type. Text, rank, which is a whole number, year, which is a whole number, and the rating, which is a decimal number. In this case, that's very important because in this case, it will not allow me to write text here or date here. And the same here, if I write something here, it will be just a text. So my model will not interpret that as a number or something else. So here we finish our data acquisition process and we have checked that everything is okay. Now we want to proceed with some analytics. So the next step is to visualize and to analyze this data. That's why we have here report section. Let's go to the report section, switch to that. And as we can see, it's empty. And to the right, we have a panel which is named visualizations. And here we have different visuals to use. So the first visual I can try to use is, let us say, some column chart. For example, let us take this column chart or this one, for example, and use it. So when you click on that, it appears here in the report section. And as we can see, it's empty. Now, to fill that column chart with data, it's actually very easy. We have to put right data fields into this boxes. So this one is called access. Let's go and see what data do we have here. IMDb top, let's open that. And for access, we can use categorical data, for example, the title. Here it is. Now title becomes the axis. And now remember that our bar chart is vertical. That means titles should be like this here as the y-axis. Now we should put here some values. So for the value we can use, for example, IMDb rating. And we see that here are the titles and here are the IMDb ratings. We see those ratings. So something weird is here. I don't understand what's going on here. 16, it's like impossible. Most probably, we have two titles named like this, which is either strange or we have the same title in different years. Okay, so to avoid this kind of problem, we can choose here the settings for this value, IMDb rating, and we can try to use, for example, minimum, maximum for that, or average. So when we use average, then it will take the average of those two, which is maybe not the best way in this case, but this is, this is a special case. So the movie with the same name. So let's try average and see what's going on here. Yeah, when we choose the average, now we can see that my data is sorted here. And here I have movies with the lowest rating. And here I have movies with the highest rating. If you think that these titles are small, you can always edit that. So by switching to the format mode for this visual, but remember, first you have to select the visual and then format it. You can change y-axis text size, let us say to 12. As you can see, the fonts became larger and now I can see the text better. So we can close the y-axis and, for example, we can add data labels here. Remember, we are in the format mode for this visual. So let's add data labels. You can see we have those data labels. And again, we can edit them. For example, we can change their text size to be 12 points. Now it looks cool. So I return to my field view. So this is one way how to visualize those movies and those ratings. But there are definitely other ways to do that. Let's add another page. One thing you already know from Excel, from using Excel, is called pivot table. And then we can naturally think, do we have a pivot table here? Can we use a pivot table here? The answer is both no and yes, or yes and no. We don't have pivot table as it is, as pivot table, but we have a thing which is called matrix, which is essentially the same pivot table. So let us click on matrix and expand a bit here. Let's do it this size. Again, if we look to the side panel, we will see that we have fields and we have rows, columns, and values, like rows, columns, and values. Absolutely the same as was with the pivot table. So for the rows, I can choose IMDb. No, this was for values. I can choose here title, rows. You see? And here I have the rating. Again, I can change the font size here just by switching to format. And in this case, I have grid. And let's change the text size in the grid. I'll just do it deliberately very large so that you can see the names here comfortably, like this. And by the way, here we have total, which is absolutely useless. We will talk about totals and aggregations later in our course, but for now, to avoid this to be a weird number, we can switch back to fields and set up the value for IMDb rating to be average, for example. Okay, now it kind of makes sense. So the average rating is 8.25. So here the data is not sorted, but we can sort that easily by clicking on the field name here. And you can see if I click once, I sort this column by its value, and the Shawshank Redemption, The Godfather, and so on. These are the movies with the highest ratings right now. What else can I do here? Because this has pivot table functionality, I can add more layers for rows. For example, I can add the year. So I can add year on top of or below title. Let's add that on top of title. We just drag and drop that, and that's it. And here are the now years. And we can see that below the years, we have titles. Okay. To open and expand or collapse them with one click, we can use here drill up or drill down functionality. So we press drill up, we close or collapse all of them. If we click expand, we can see that here are they. All the data is being expanded and we can see them easily. All right, so that's very easy manipulation to get some already analytics and visuals on this data. Now we'll continue doing things here. For example, let us say I want to understand whether new, modern or old movies have different ratings, like people prefer old movies or new movies and so on. But before that, because that will require some data manipulation, transformation, before that, let us try to make another simple analysis. Let us assume that we want to understand, is there any relationship between a year of the movie and its rating? So, can we say that older movies are highly rated or vice versa? Let's create new page. And as you may know, the chart, the right chart for creating this type of visual is scatter. So let's select scatter chart or scatter plot. And just expand it a bit to the whole page. And here it is. Again, we have the chart, body, if you wish. And now we have some fields here to fill in. So x-axis and y-axis are obviously the two axes I need to fill in, right? So for the x-axis, I will use year. So I want to explain by year. Here it is. And for the y-axis, I want to use the IMDb rating. We see here that there's just one dot, which is strange. That is because my data is not being split by the titles. So if I add titles as a legend or details, then I see that something happened here. And now I can see what? I can see the scatter. But again, I see the same problem. I see one movie which has very strange rating because probably, again, this chart uses that twice. So to avoid that in this case, simplest way, just let us choose here rating to be the average one. Okay. And for the year, which is also strange because we have 2000, you see, and then we have here 4000. That means it was year 2000, let's say, and double of that is 4000. For the year, let us select for now the latest one, the maximum. Here it is. Now I can see here movies, their ratings, and years. Honestly, I don't see any special or particular relationship between them or particular trend here or even clustering. There is some, of course, because these are some discrete values. Right? Discrete values. That's why they're like this discrete. But overall, well, there are some movies here in this range, in this period, during this period, which has higher ratings. Maybe that could be interpreted as the result or as a viable, meaningful result, but I'm not sure here. And right now, my purpose is just to demonstrate for you how it works. Interpretation, let's leave that alone for now. Now, if I change title to legend or legend, I'll see that now my dots are colored and every color represents particular title. So let's get back title to details. And for example, I can color them by year. So instead of legend, I can put year. Now you see, the titles with the same year will have the same color. Again, this is just to demonstrate you the abilities of this visual. So natural question would be, can we classify those movies as, for example, new, old, or modern? Let us say we can classify them as following. First, let me increase this x-axis, the font for x-axis, format, sorry. Then I go for x-axis and select text size. Let it be 14, so they're quite large. And let us define that old movies, let's say they will be, let me do it a bit lower, a bit larger. Let us say that before year 1990, like 1990, they will be old movies. For example, of course, we can do that also from 1980. Let's go for 1980. So before 1980, all movies, we classify them as old. Between 1980 and let us say 2010, we can classify them as new, relatively. And after 2010, like 2010, up to today, we can classify them as modern. Again, this classification is arbitrary and you can use your own classification. Now, if I define them as old, new, and modern, that means I add categories. So I want to categorize these numbers. Then I will be able to summarize my data in that category. So first, let's think, how can we categorize them? There are different ways to do that. We can do that directly in Power BI, or we can go to the source table and do that in Power Query. In this case, for educational purposes, let's go to the source and do that in Power Query. So how we do that? Just right-click on this table name and select Edit Query. As you can see, we're again in the Power Query editor, and here we have data fields. Now, what we want to do, we want to add additional column. So that means we have to select Add Column in menu or in ribbon. And we can use different column adding possibilities. We can add column from examples. We can add custom column, invoke custom function. In this case, we will use conditional column because our column will be, or will use an if statement. Let's go for conditional column. And here you can see a very convenient dialog, which first asks what will be the name of the column. Let's call it, I don't know, epoch. That means all, new, modern, and so on. And now I have to set here if statements. It's so easy. So if the year of the movie is, let us say, less than 1980, we can output them as old. Again, you can change it as you like. For example, you can put them, let's do that. For example, we can do that before 2000, they were old. For example, why not? We can do that, right? In this case, I'll stick to 1980. Okay, what if the year of the movie is not 1980, but is more than that? That's why we add a clause, one more clause, and in this case, this is else if clause. That means if this is not true, then we check else. Again, we make a check. If year is less than, let's say 2010, then the movie is new. What if it's not less than 2010? Let's say it's 2021. Then else we classify as modern. Again, it's so easy, nothing complicated here. So let's say the year is, let's say 2021. It checks if it's less than 1980, false. Else, if it's less than 2010, false. Then it classifies that as modern. To continue, we just press OK or click OK. And here you can see we have new column and automatically classified. This is quite convenient if you have, let us say, client data and you want to classify clients like large clients, medium clients, small clients, or new clients, old clients, returning clients, whatever. You got it, right? So if we look into this panel, again, we can see that we have additional step here, which defines the epoch. But now I know that this column must contain a text, so I can change the data type to a text. Again, it's so easy. And to return back to Power BI, I just click here, Home, close and apply, and wait unless or until the data is being refreshed. Because Power BI, when it refreshes data, first it fetches, it reads from web, it fetches HTML to table, does all that transformations, and then shows us the data here. And you can see now we have it here. Now if we go back to report, we can switch back to fields. So selecting again the scatter fields, and in the legend we can use not the year but the epoch we have defined. And you can see how beautiful the data now becomes, because till this point one color, then we have another color and the blue one. Okay, now what if I want to aggregate those data points and just use one aggregated measure for each epoch? I'm adding one more page. Let's add one more page together. And let us select here some column chart. Here it is. And in the axis as the axis for this column chart, let us use epoch. And as the value, let us use IMDb rating. Here I see that automatically IMDb rating in this chart is being aggregated by sum, which is quite strange because the sum of ratings is meaningless. It's like the sum of ages. It's a meaningless measure, okay, unless we don't use that for specific purposes. So for this purpose, I think the average could be better solution. So to get the average, again, I go to these values and change its property, or not property, but the way it shows that aggregates to average. Oh, here it is. And now I see that their averages are quite close. Even honestly, I cannot even differentiate between them, honestly. So to see the difference better, we can change the scale. Here it starts from 0 until 8. Let's say we can start from 6. How to do that? Again, we go to Format. So we have Y-axis, and Start is automatic. We can change it to 6. And let's see, do we see the difference? Well, it's okay, but we can even choose 7 to exaggerate or to like zoom into that in order to see the difference. If you are fine with that, then you can choose this one and stay with this scale. Another thing is I want to add data labels to see actual value. So I can increase the data label size to, let's say, 20. Okay. And units are automatic. So that could be changed to none or to thousands, but it doesn't make any sense here to change them. So let's keep that automatic. And that's it. So here is the aggregated chart, which aggregates all this data. So the last thing we will do in this video with you together is to check if there is any alphabet effect. For example, can we aggregate the movies by their first letters in their titles, and then check whether any letter has particular influence. This is usually called alphabet effect because, for example, if the movie starts with A, so in many lists it will be the first. C is also okay. T is not okay from the alphabet perspective because that will be somewhere near to the second half of the alphabet, right? Second half of the list. And of course the W or Z, they will be even further from the start of the list. So again, here I want to extract the first letters. Of course I can do that with, again, DAX, but I'll keep this DAX functionality. DAX means a special functional language which is used in PowerBI. But I'll keep that for the later lessons. And right now, let us go back to Power Query, Edit Query, and by using Power Query, let's extract the first letters from the title. How can we do that? Just check Transform section. And here we have extract. Honestly, when I started to work with Power Query, I really liked it. I would say from the first sight. So it's so simple to use and so easy to manipulate data. Extract. So we can extract the first characters. We can, of course, define the length, but it's better just to extract first characters. Oh, now, my wrong, because I'm here. That's not good. So cancel. Let me go to title, select title. Again, transform, extract first characters. And I want to extract one character from the beginning. Okay. Now, what happened? Oh, something happened, but I don't like this. What happened here? So when we don't like something happens here, just delete this step. Okay, just delete this step. Probably my first character is space. So first of all, I need to trim all those spaces. So if I right click here and transform, I can trim. Trim means remove all the unnecessary spaces. Trim. Now, not to lose the title itself, I can first duplicate it. So we can duplicate it. Where's the duplicate? It's called duplicate column. Here it is. And now after this operation, I can again try to extract the first character from that column. And in this case, I see that my operation is successful and I get the first letter from this from every title. Let's change to title first letter. Okay, the column name is changed to title first letter. And let's go back to Power BI. So data is being transformed and it's ready for further consumption or analytics. So home and close and apply. Again, Power BI is thinking and loading the data. Here it is. Now we have title first letter. And I want to somehow see ratings or average rating by the first letter of the title. It's so easy. We go back to report. Let's add new page. I don't name pages right now. In reality, in your jobs, we do name them and give meaningful names in order to make navigation easier, because if we name them page 1, 2, 3, 4, you don't know what is here, what is here. So again, let's add some column chart here. Here it is. Okay. And let us drag and drop data fields into respective places. So for access, I will go for the title first letter. Here it is. And for value, we go again for IMDb rating, but let us make it to be average. By the way, we can see that T is dominating. That's because the article the. Okay, average. So let's see, do we have something meaningful here? Okay, we see that the titles with 1, it has the highest rating. That's on average. So that could be also just one-off, because it could be that just we have one title, because it's rare title, which begins with 1. And that's why it's like this. So again, interpretation is the next thing. So the next step is when we interpret the results and understand, are they okay or they are not okay? We need some modifications and so on. But anyway, I see here some result. And again, to exaggerate this result, I can, for example, change the scale to start from 6. Format, y-axis, and start from 6. Again, I do that to exaggerate here the chart to see the results in a better way. Now, what can we do else? For example, here we can add another chart. So let's click in this empty place. Just click it here. And let's add donut chart. Now, nowadays we use donut charts instead of pie charts. Okay, they look contemporary, and there are some also reasons which we will probably cover later. Now, this is a donut chart which will show the weight or the share of something. Let's use epoch as the legend here. Okay, modern, new, old. And we can use the title itself as a value. Now, you can ask me, hey, how can we use a title as a value? It's a text. The answer is we can count those titles, right? So for text, we have count or count distinct. The difference is in distinct, we count only distinct values. In count, we count all values. For now, let's count all values. And what we see here, we see that predominantly we have new movies, then we have old movies, and some modern movies. Now, what is beautiful in Power BI, that if you click on, for example, in this section of this donut chart, you filter out all the data for this page. Again, if you click on that again, you remove the filter. So we can filter the data by other chart. So for example, if I click here on L, we filter and leave only movies with starting with L. And you can see we have also filtered this epoch donut chart. Okay, so that's so actually cool. So what can we do next? We can add another donut chart, for example, and use that to visualize years. Or we can use, for example, tree map. Let's use this tree map here. So tree map is very interesting type of visual chart. In the group field, let's put year. I don't know what will come out, what we will get out of this, but probably it could be something interesting. So group is year. And number of titles, let them be values. Here they are. So we can see that in top list, 1995 dominates, and then we have movies from two. So that means we have 8 titles from this year, 1995. We have 7 titles from 2000, 7 titles from 19 year, and so on. And again, if I click here, for example, I want to see all the movies from year 2014. I just click here and I see them here. Okay, if I click one more time, I remove all the filters. So it's so easy and so cool to play around with this. And of course, it's very useful in real life. Now, this filters, they don't only filter the charts. So for example, if we have something like this, which is called matrix, we can use the same mechanism to filter the matrix. So to do that, we can just copy and paste those visuals. For example, I want to copy this visual, just Control C, and then I go back to my page and Control V. Here it is. I can place it somewhere above, and you can see how I easily, again, use this visual to filter out the values or the data points here in this matrix. Now you can play around with this file. Please do not stop here. You can play around. You can do other interesting things with this file. Okay. And let's remember that data analytics is very creative job actually, because you don't usually have standard situations. Data is very different. Today we are working with the IMDb data sets. Tomorrow we can work with financial reports of companies. Then we can work with HR data, marketing data, and every data set is somehow unique. Of course, there are common things which can be applied everywhere, and those common things are our goal to study with you together. Okay, so here I stop this small first introductory session into Power BI, and hope to see you in my lesson where we will go deeper into different topics. We'll understand how to calculate different things in DAX by using DAX functions. We'll understand deeper concepts related to data transformation. We'll work with different tables and merging data, like joins, different joins, appending data, getting data from folders, and so on. So there will be many things to accomplish. So see you later.